Rome, the year 523 after Christ. You sit inside the Colosseum, yet something feels different. No cheering, no cries for blood. Only a muted murmur that drifts through the arches. The sand is disturbed, traces of past battles still remain, yet they seem faded, as if this place has begun to forget itself. Men and animals enter the arena. Everything feels familiar, and yet strangely empty, almost mechanical, as if a ritual is unfolding that no one truly believes in anymore. You look around you. The rows are no longer filled. The people sit scattered without expectation, only quietly observing. No one announces an ending. No emperor rises. And yet it hangs in the air, heavy and unavoidable. As you watch the final games, you are part of a moment that will never return. No bang, no applause, only a quiet fading. Right here begins the end of the Colosseum, not as a sudden collapse, but as a slow disappearance. To understand it, you must look back to a time when this place was still alive. Once the Colosseum was more than just a structure. It was the beating heart of Rome, a place where the power of the empire revealed itself. Here, it was not only about entertainment, but about order and hierarchy. The tiers reflected society. Below sat senators and nobles. Above them, ordinary citizens. And at the very top, those who barely mattered. Every level showed exactly where your place was. While thousands looked down into the arena, they were also witnessing a system greater than themselves. Yet the Colosseum was not only a symbol, but also a tool. Rome understood, give the people bread and games, and they will not question. The spectacles were distraction and control at the same time. While blood was spilled in the center, order was maintained at the edges. In this lay the true power of this place, not in the fights themselves, but in what they achieved. The Colosseum was both stage and instrument, a place where Rome presented itself as unbeatable and eternal. But then something begins to change, slowly and almost unnoticed. The Roman Empire, once unshakable, begins to falter. In the 3rd century, crises shake its stability. Emperors change rapidly, power is often taken by force, borders grow uncertain, and distrust rises within. At the same time, the economy suffers, trade routes collapse, coins lose value, and resources grow scarce. What was once abundant must now be carefully distributed. Rome can no longer afford everything, not even the massive games in the Colosseum. The spectacles were costly, animals from distant lands, trained fighters, elaborate productions. As the empire struggles to survive, the games begin to lose their meaning. They become rarer and simpler, not from lack of desire, but from lack of means. It is here that the Colosseum begins to lose its central role. Not suddenly, but quietly, almost unnoticed, like a heart slowly growing weaker. And right here, not only power begins to change, but also the way people think. As the empire weakens, a new force begins to rise: Christianity. At first persecuted, it still spreads across every layer of society, and in the 4th century, under Emperor Constantine the Great, it is first tolerated, then supported, and eventually becomes the dominant religion. With this shift, many things once taken for granted are suddenly questioned. The bloody games, the fights and executions no longer fit the new moral ideas. The thought that people die for entertainment begins to face growing resistance. Voices become louder, criticism increases, and even though traditions do not disappear overnight, they begin to lose their support. Society starts to change, away from public violence toward new values. And it is this very transformation that puts pressure on the Colosseum. It shifts from a symbol of Roman strength into a relic of a world that is slowly fading away. And then a moment arrives that changes everything, quietly and finally. In the year 404 after Christ, the gladiator games are ended under Emperor Honorius. This step is the result of a long transformation. yet it marks a clear boundary between two worlds. With the ban, what once defined the Colosseum disappears: fights, heroes, and blood in the sand. Everything that once drew the crowds comes to an end. Suddenly, the arena still stands vast and imposing, but without its true purpose. Without gladiators, the Colosseum loses its role and becomes a stage without a performance. The silence begins, not abruptly, but gradually. Sounds grow fewer, visitors become rare, the energy that once filled the space slowly fades. The walls remain, yet their meaning changes, because without the action, this place slowly begins to lose its soul. And yet, it does not all end immediately. Although the gladiators are gone, part of the games continues to live on. In the year 523 after Christ, the last recorded animal hunts take place in the Colosseum, the so-called venaciones, only a faint shadow of earlier times. Animals still enter the arena, people still sit in the stands, but the energy has changed. The excitement is muted, the interest no longer as strong as it once was. What used to be a central event now feels like a relic. The games are simpler, less elaborate. Grand productions and exotic animals become rare, not only for moral reasons, but also because resources are lacking. And so this final game unfolds like many before, without great announcement, without special meaning. People come, they watch, they leave. No one realizes that it is the end. No final curtain, only an ordinary day. And that is exactly what makes it so significant, because history often does not end with a bang, but quietly and unnoticed. And right here, something happens that is almost impossible to grasp in its silence. There is no clear moment of ending, no emperor, no voice, no final spectacle that marks the conclusion. Instead, it happens in the most unnoticed way. The spectators stand up, as they always have, walk through the arches out into the streets of Rome, without pausing, without looking back, without knowing that it is the last time. And that is exactly what makes this moment so unique. The Colosseum is not closed or destroyed, it is simply no longer used. Days pass, then weeks, then months, and no one returns. The arena remains empty, the sand untouched, the gates closed, not by intention, but by irrelevance. And so, a place once full of life slowly turns into a place of silence, an echo of itself. This transition does not happen abruptly, but like a quiet fading that is only later recognized as the end. And then begins what no empire can ever stop: the slow decay. Not through a single moment, but across many centuries. In the year 443, an earthquake first strikes Rome, followed by others in 470 and 484 as well as 508. They leave cracks behind, damage the walls, and weaken the structure. Yet the Colosseum remains standing, wounded but upright, as if it could resist everything. But in the year 1349, everything changes. A massive earthquake causes large parts of the southern side to collapse, arches break apart, and huge stones fall away. For the first time, the structure visibly loses its form. The image we recognize today begins to appear. But even this is not the end. For centuries, the Colosseum is used as a quarry. Materials are removed and built into other structures. As its substance disappears, nature returns. Plants grow, wind and weather take their toll. And so the Colosseum becomes what it is today. Not a sudden ruin, but the result of a long interplay between time, humans, and nature. And yet, the Colosseum does not remain empty for long, because even ruins attract life. In the Middle Ages, its role changes once again. No longer an arena or symbol of power, but part of everyday life. Its walls offer protection, its structure provides stability, and so it becomes a fortress. Noble families use it for defense, build additional walls, secure entrances, and control the grounds. But not only power returns, simple life does as well. People settle there, build shelters between the stones, and use the old spaces as living and storage areas. A new image begins to form. Where once tens of thousands watched spectacles, a small community now lives its daily life. The Colosseum almost completely loses its original meaning and becomes an ordinary part of its surroundings, a structure among many, whose history still lives in its stones, but barely plays a role in the lives of the people. But then everything changes once again, not through war or nature, but through a new view of the past. In the 18th century, the Church begins to see the Colosseum no longer as a mere ruin, but as a place of special meaning. It is now regarded as a site of Christian martyrdom, as a symbol of suffering and sacrifice. This new interpretation gives the structure a completely different role. Pope Benedict XIV places the Colosseum under protection and thus ends its centuries-long use as a quarry. For the first time, it is no longer used to build something else, but to preserve itself. The first preservation efforts begin. Damaged sections are supported, not to restore the original state, but to protect what still remains. In this way, the Colosseum transforms into a monument, a symbol of history rather than of power or entertainment. Today, the Colosseum still stands in the heart of Rome, marked by time, broken yet not defeated. Millions of people pass through its arches every year, step onto the same ground, and look upon the same arena. But what they see is no longer what once existed. No blood, no fights, only stone, light and shadow. And within that lies its true power, as a symbol of the impermanence even of the greatest empires. As visitors walk through the ruins, they stand in a place that was once the center of the world. Today, it is a place of wonder and reflection. As a cultural heritage site, the Colosseum reminds us not only of the greatness of Rome, but also of its transformation, its rise and its fall. And that is exactly why it still feels so powerful today. Not because it is complete, but because it has survived. And when you walk through the Colosseum today, it feels quiet, almost peaceful. Yet this silence is not empty. It is filled with everything that once happened here. When you pause and truly listen, the past seems to come alive again. The murmur of the crowd, the clash of metal, the roar of a beast. For a moment, the centuries fade away, and the place lives again, not seen, but deeply felt. That is exactly where its true power lies. The Colosseum is more than stone. It is an echo of time, where past and present exist side by side. While today only light falls through the arches, every stone still carries memory within it. And perhaps that is its greatest meaning, not what it once was, but what it reveals, that even the loudest places fall silent, empires fade away, yet their stories remain.